Hi, in this video I will give a quick overview of Testinvite exam software. Testinvite exam software is a cloud-based end-to-end ready-to-use exam software solution that delivers robust item banking and analytics, control over your entire testing process, and ability to test securely when and where you want. I am already logged into my account, and on the left menu there are a few items that I can set up. The first thing is the organization. So every account that you create under Testinvite exam software is attached to an organization. That's how you have the ability to cooperate with other people in your team. So when you click on organization, you will have a few pages that you can further navigate, but I will go over the users page. On the users page, you basically see the users that you will be cooperating when you use the account. And the users may have multiple roles. For instance, some people may be a manager, and some people can be editor and operator. So you can check the documentation to understand fully what each role has the ability to do in the software. But here you can create a good separation of responsibility. And you can also create some regular users, and regular user can only take your tests. So some corporations want to conduct exams to their users, meaning that they want to give exams to their employees. So you may also prefer to add accounts for each of your employees. And when you add an account for an employee, you can add some tags so that later on when you assign your employees to a test, you can find the right set of employees very quickly. For instance, we have here two regular users. One is Einstein and the other is Sarah. And the other two people are actually the people who are managing this account. One is manager, the other has Mike, which has two roles. So if I want to, for instance, find the people who are in the sales department, I simply need to make a filter like this, and I will find the people who are tagged with Department of Sales. So I can quickly select these people. So this is how Testinvite exam software allows you to tag your users so that you can find the right set of people when and wherever you want. I will now go quickly over the question bank. The question bank is where you store all of your questions. Basically, the structure is very straightforward. There are some folders which you can create as many as you want, and each folder has some questions. For instance, in the math folder, when we select the folder, we see the tags that the questions in this folder have. So for instance, in math folder, we created some questions having some tags like subject and level. This is how we have set it up. So it is the question bank is fully flexible. You can create as many folders as you want, and for each folder and for each question basically, you can create as many tags as you want. For instance, in this folder, we already see that there are 18 questions. And I also see that all of these questions have been tagged by level being beginner. But for the subject tag, we see that 8 of them only are have the subject being arithmetic, and 10 is algebra. So I can click on algebra and list the algebra questions. So when you have multiple tags here, you can make multiple selections so that you can narrow your question set. For instance, I can say, just get me the questions having subject being algebra and level being beginner, for instance. Okay, so here are all the questions having level beginner and subject algebra. So this is a very flexible format. You can create as many tags as you want when you create your questions, and the system will automatically list all the tags that the questions have so that you can filter out the right set of questions. Let's look at another folder, English folder. Here, as you see, this folder has a different set of tags. For instance, there's a new tag here, category. So English questions folder has some questions that have tags category. So when I click on writing, for instance, I will see the questions that have tags category being writing. And on the other hand, I have a level tag. So I can select writing and beginner level questions, and now I will only see questions that have been tagged by category writing and level beginner. So this is how the question bank actually works. It's very straightforward. You also have some way for creating some shortcuts for your selections. For instance, here we have a shortcut for beginner level arithmetic questions. This is something that you can create for any selection that you make. So when I click on this, the selection is already made for me so that the right set of questions is ready to list. So when you create a question in the question bank, let's go to the, for instance, geography folder. There are only 2 questions here right now. You can add basically 2 question types, but they have some subtypes, so we will go over that. For instance, the multiple choice question editor. I will not go into detail how this editor works because I have another video that I explain everything about the question bank. So this video will be a very quick overview. But you basically write your question and add your options. We have a quick way to do that. For instance, I can use this template like question and then each option in a line. I can paste and I am almost done. So I picked the right option here, and I can set it so that the choices will be shuffled for each person who is taking a test, and I click on preview to see how the question will look like to the end user. Okay, I can also check if blue is selected, the system will not provide any point, but if black, which is marked as being correct, is selected by the end user, he will get a full point out of this question. So I don't go into detail, but you can add images, audio, video, and file into your question tags or in all of your options like this. And there are what I want to show you here, how the connection between the question and the question bank is. So for each question you have a folder tab where you specify which folder this question will be stored. For instance, the system already shows me some folders that have been previously created. So I can select one, or I can create a new folder name here so that the system will create a new folder and put this question in. So now let's see that let's think like this question will go to geography folder. Now the system tells me that, oh, in this folder there are some other questions having tags like group and level. Do you want to add this tag? Okay, let's add. For this question, for instance, the level can be beginner or intermediate. So this is what the system already provides me as options, but I am not required to select one of those. For instance, I can say, no, this question is pre-intermediate, for instance, and I can add this tag. And for the group, I see that there is only one group, which is capital, but now I say, for instance, favorite. Okay, so the group is favorite, for instance. So when I save this question and go to the question bank, and I browse to geography folder, which now has 3 questions, now you will see that a new value option for level has emerged, like pre-intermediate. So I can find my question back by selecting pre-intermediate, because there is only one question here right now. Okay, this is the question that we have just created. This is basically how the question bank works. I also showed you very quickly how the multiple choice question editor works. I will also mention about the subjective question type, which is an input question. So you write here your question, and then you define how the user will respond to this question. Here there is already a preview, so that you can preview how the question will look like to the end user. So here are the options for the user to answer this question. We can provide a text field like this, or we can provide a text area, letting the user to enter text with multiple lines. We can provide a rich text editor to the end user, so that he can create a rich content and add images, audio file, or other things into the response. We can provide the user an audio recorder, so that he can respond by recording his voice through his microphone. Or we can provide a video recorder to the end user, so that he can respond by recording the webcam video. We can select code editor, so that the user will be able to write his responses by writing a code. We can select among many options for the editor, code editor. And we can finally let the user respond by uploading a file. Okay, so this is enough for the question bank. Let's move to the tests. So you can create as many tests as you want. And let me go through one of the tests that we have already created. When you click on the edit button, you will first see that the structure of the test. So this test has 3 sections. And the first section is geography, the second is English, and the third is math. And the test name is general knowledge test. Okay. So here we have some timers for both the test. The test has a time limit of 1 hour, but the geography section has its own timer, which is 5 minutes. And the English section also has its own timer. So there are 3 levels of timers in a test. You can set a timer at the test level, at the section level, and also at a page level. For instance, in the first section, the geography section has a timer, but the pages inside the section do not have any timer. So the user can use the given time for the section in the pages however he prefers. But in the English section, we have both a time limit in section, but also at the page level. For instance, the speaking page has its own time limit. Okay, enough for time limitations. Let's move how we set up the navigation restrictions. So do we want the user to be able to navigate between sections, or in a section do we want to allow him navigate between pages? So there are 2 options for that. For the test, you can set up so that the user can go forward and backward, or for each section you can do the same selection, like you can allow or disallow the user to go backward and forward in this section. So I have already gone through the structure and the navigation restrictions and time limits. Let's check a few pages. For instance, the capitals page. This is the first page of the section Geography. When you click on the pencil, you will see the questions in this page. So basically we have two questions in this page, and they are actually coming from the question bank, but they are static, meaning that all people will be seeing these questions. You can set points for each question, and you can create or add questions from the question bank very easily. You can browse your question bank, and then you will simply select the questions that you want to add to this page, and when you add that, as you see, the page will be added some new questions. But I will not now change the structure of my test. Okay, let's check another page. For instance, the English speaking. In the English section, there is a page with a name Speaking. Let's edit this page and see what is in there. So here there isn't any. It looks like there isn't any static question here, because what we see here is a random question selector. In this question, we have already set it up so that every person who is taking a test will have a different question which is randomly selected from a set of two questions. This is how we set it up. So we create a list of questions here, and then we set it so that the system selects some out of this list randomly for each user. There is another level of randomization of content, and it is at the page level. For instance, here there is a random page picker. The way random page picker works is very similar to random question selector, but this one selects random pages out of a given list of pages that we provide. For instance, there are two pages here. One is named 16th century and the other is named Sherlock. And this page picker will randomly select one page for each user who takes the test. Let's check the content of the page, and we will see that there is a reading material and some questions related to this reading material. This is why we didn't wanted to randomly pick questions from a list of questions, but we wanted to create a page which have both the content and related questions all together, so that we can make a selection among the pages. The final thing is the page builder, which is in the mod section. And here we have a page builder already set up. So how it works? It works very similarly. We again create a list of questions. Basically, we select all of those questions from the question bank. So we create a list, and the list has now 10 questions. And we set it up like, okay, out of these 10 questions, we say that select all. I could also say that select only 5, for instance. So it will be, again, a randomization. So when we select 10 out of these 10 questions, now we say in extra, we say that how many pages to build. So we say that, okay, build 5 pages out of these 10 questions that have been selected from this list of questions. So here, when you have a page builder, the test editor will be generating dynamic pages for each user. So we have a preview here already. So when you click on preview, you will see just an instance of a test like the end user will see. For instance, the test timer has already started. We are at the section 1, which is geography. If I start the section, I will see that my timer for section has started. So there are some questions. How many continents on Earth? Okay, we make some we respond to some questions, and I advance. So as you see in the first section, I am allowed to go back and forth. So because this is how we set it up. Okay, let's continue. What is the capital of Germany? Berlin. Let's continue. Okay, now I am on the second section. In this section, as you see, I am not allowed to go forward and backward. And in this page also I have a timer, so I have to respond to this question in the given time limit, which was 10 minutes. And I can click on start recording button to respond to this question, because this is a subjective question with audio recording. Let's skip. And this one is another subjective question about writing. Let's move on. And this is a randomly picked page for me. And this time the system picked Sherlock page for me. So here's the reading material and the questions related to that. Okay, let's make some selections and continue. Okay, I am on the third section, which is the math section. And in this section, if you remember, we have put a page builder so that the pages are built automatically for each user. And in this section, the setting is so that I can go back but not forward. Okay, this is also a different strategy. So I cannot jump, but I can go back and change my responses. For instance, let's go to the page 2 and now respond to these questions. Next, page 3. Okay, so I can also see how many of the questions I have answered. And page 5. Let's pick some answers. Let's continue. Okay, I am at the end of the test, so I make my final choices and end the test. Okay, the test is over. So we have a quick preview of how our test will run. Okay, so now I will continue with the task section. The task is basically a framework that lets the students or candidates take your tests or access your tests, let's say. When you click on edit, you will see that you can set a title for the task, and then you set up a welcome page, and then you write your instructions, and then you add your tests into your task. You can add a single test or multiple tests. For instance, in this task there are 2 tests, and the first one is general knowledge test, and the second one is aptitude test, for instance. So every person who can access the task will be able to take these tests. So in the aptitude test, there are some short description about this test, and there is a notice so that the user have to confirm before starting the test. So we have the ability settings so that we can set some dates and times so that the user will only be allowed to take the test between the dates. We can allow the user to take the test only once or multiple times or unlimited times. We can restrict the operating system, platform, or browser so that, for instance, we can disallow the user to take the test through his mobile, or we can enforce the user to use, for instance, Windows operating system to take a test. This is where we are setting this up. And in this option, we select a monitoring method so that the user during the exam, the system will take pictures or record webcam video, or we simply don't enable any monitoring. We can enforce full screen so that the user's browser will be locked down, so that the user will not be able to browse other pages or apps during the examination. So we can enable that. On the notification part, we can set an email address so that whenever someone completes a test, I will be notified. And I can set some preconditions, for instance, that the second test will only be available to people who have a score of more than 50% in the first test. And in the reporting options, we decide whether we want to display the results to the end user or not. Okay, let's move on. So when the task is almost built, you decide on how to let people access to this task. So there is basically a link here, so that when people visit this link, they will see your welcome page and the authentication method that you have just chosen. It is here. So we can say it like every user will be provided by an invitation code that will be created by the system, or we can import our credentials, and a credential is basically any kind of value that helps us identify the user, like student ID or employee ID or email, something like that. And two credentials is just like one credential, but it's a pair of credentials like username and password. So for this one, for instance, let's say that we want to only allow the user to enable the task by invitation code. When I save that, I will see that now the page will ask me for my invitation code to access this task. So let's go to the tickets. The tickets are how you create some access, valid access for the task. For instance, here we have a invitation code for Boriana. Let's use this code. I will simply copy that for now, so that it is very straightforward, and I paste that. I click on continue. I am acting like the end user here. So now, because this invitation code is valid, I am already in the task. So there is an instruction for the task, and there are some tests that I can take. As you see, the second test can only be taken after I take the first test. This is how we set up, and also we set it up so that I have to have more than 50% of success in the first test. So when I click on start, I will see the notice that I have just put in the task for this test. So if I click confirm, now the system requires me to enable my webcam, because we have set it so. We required the user to enable his webcam so that we can take photos during the test. So the user continues by enabling his webcam, and the system starts to take some photos now. Okay, and the second setting that we have enabled is to enforce the user to go to the full screen mode. And okay, when I confirm that, now I am at the full screen mode in the test. I cannot move out of this screen. Okay, so we have already seen how the test works, so I will not go into detail now. I will simply click close, and I am done with this test. When a test is over, in the admin panel, in the task editor, we will have a results tab so that we can see the latest results. Up to now there are only 3 results, but now we see that Boriana also has ended a test. And we can see the report, very detailed report for each of the tests. This is the summary in each section, how many questions there were and how many points the participant had. Unfortunately, we didn't reply to any question. But on the answers sheet, we can also see the answers paper answer that the user has selected, or the responses that the user has given for each question. And in information tab, we can see the flow, and the flow panel tell me the story behind the test. So I know that the user has started the page 1 and then he ended the page 1 and that's over. He didn't look into the other pages. So now I may say that, oh, this user has been interrupted somehow. Maybe something bad happened during the exam in terms of health or other things, so that I can reset up the test. When I reset up a test, I basically let the user to continue the test from where he is left. On the monitoring section, we will basically see the pictures that has been taken during the test. I will not go into too much detail about that. You will be able to see when you use the software. Okay, the last thing that I will also say is that you can send automated emails to people so that they can simply click on an email and access the task. And you can import your tickets at once. And finally, there is an analytics part where you can see how the questions perform. For instance, let's go to question analytics and we will see that some questions and how many times they have been asked and how many times they have been answered and how many times they have been answered correctly, for instance. And we also have an analytic for test. For now, for instance, there is only one test and it has been taken by 3 times. This is the average score and average score for each sections. And when you click on the norm diagram, we see some frequency histogram, and we have all the stats for each sections and dimensions. Okay, this was a very quick overview, and as I said, Testinvite is a very advanced exam software where you can create examinations from very basic to highly complex. Thank you very much.